Back in our second look at basic structures, we're going to continue to add detail to our building. I'm going to select the next edge loop up. And what I want to do with this one is add two more edge loops around it so that I can extrude a concrete shelf so that you can visibly see there's a division between floors. So with that selected, I'm going to go to Mesh Tools and I'm going to choose Offset Edge Loop. Then it says click and drag on edges. So I have that edge loop selected. I'm just going to click and then drag. You can see how that's going to expand or shrink my offset. That's pretty good right there. I'm just going to drop that down. Now I'm still in the offset edge loop tool, which means I could kind of continue selecting and create more offsets, but I don't want to. So I'm just going to click the select tool to back out of it. And then we're going to zoom up and take a look at what we've created here. These are not evenly spaced. We can see the bottom one here has more space than the top one. If I switch over to my attribute editor and choose Poly Duplicate Edge, which is the history node created for that offset edge loop, I can go in there and look at the split type. Right now, it's set to relative. And what this means, the distance of my offset is relative to the distance between the surrounding geometry. So as a result, the distance between here is different between both sides. So this is shorter here, this is longer here, therefore I'm getting the same effect in my offset edge loop. All we need to do to fix this is go to split type, change this from relative to absolute. Now it switches and it just looks at the distance based off of the edge that we're offsetting from, and then moves that offset out. And it's moving it out 0.054. We'll just round this up. Let's just take it to 0.05. Now, I no longer need that interior edge loop. So just want to right mouse click in my viewport and then hit Control Delete. And that's going to get rid of that interior edge loop. Now, double click on the second face and select the entire edge loop. And we'll go back to my modeling toolkit, choose Extrude, and pull out a little shelf. In order to pull that out, we could use our thickness, which is the way we want to do it. When I pull that thickness out, it comes out nice and even, the same distance all the way around. The other way would be using Local Translate Z or clicking on the Z axis of my manipulator. If I click on this and just drag, it will extrude out in all directions here. So it's pulling out in the local axis. But look what happens to the corners of my extrude. Because it's local, it's picking up a different distance. This is just like that offset edge loop tool, kind of absolute versus relative. And here we're looking at local versus global. That's not what we're looking for. So I'm just going to enter 0 in my InView editor and then change my thickness. We'll just type in a value here, -0.1. And it didn't take there. So move this out. Oh, that's why, because we just need a value of 0.1, not negative. And now that pulls out just a nice little shelf there, showing us the difference between the levels of the building. Next, let's add some windows. For the windows, I'm going to go just to a side view here. I'm going to right click and go to face. And I'm going to select every other face here. And I'm doing this in a side view because I'm not only selecting the faces that we see here directly, but as we switch back over to a perspective view, we can see that we're also selecting the faces in the back of the building. I'm going to switch to the front view and do the exact same thing so that I'm grabbing faces from both sides just to make my life easier so I don't have to try and individually select all of these windows. And if you get a little extra there, hold Control and just draw a marquee just to deselect. And now we'll do an extrude. For this, we don't have any corners, so we could do local or thickness. It's really going to come out in the same way. So I'm just going to push these in. And again, you can see this is a local to the extrude. So it's going to pull out in the local z-axis, which is exactly what we're looking for there. We'll just make this -0.15 to push that in, just to give us a little lip around each of the windows. Let's add just one more thing here. We're just going to put a little roof on there. To add, I'm going to go to faces and I want to select just the top of the building, which is actually too much that I've selected there, but I wanted all of the faces at the very top. So we did a large marquee, and then I'll just come in and then just deselect. I kind of always find it easier to select a little bit more and then deselect as opposed to trying to grab exactly what I'm after in one shot. With that selected, I'll choose extrude, lift this up in the Z, and we'll just set this to a value of 2. That'll be fine. I'm going to right click, go to face, double click there to get the entire row. We'll extrude. Now I want to use that thickness because now I got to take into account that corner. I don't want those to bend on me. We'll add some thickness here. Let's change that to 0.2. And now I got a nice little shelf there. Let's grab the center there, and we want to bring that in a little bit so that the roof actually has kind of a border up at the top. I'm going to expand my selection there, and I'm going to hit R for the scale tool, drag this in just a little bit, and then I'll hit extrude, and I'm just going down so I can just grab this in the local. There we go. Now we actually have a roof. People can walk around up there. And I have a nice shelf to differentiate between floors and the top of the building. Now we could go back in and we can extrude some doors and get really fancy with it, but this just gives us a good place to start.